Okay, so this is Unit 5, Moles and Stoi, and we're almost to the end of this unit. This is Lesson 6, and in this lesson we're going to focus on mole-mole problems. And they're really easy if you follow the process. And you need to have a balanced equation. So you wind up making two ratios and setting them equal to one another, as in a proportion. So one ratio comes directly from the balanced equation, from the coefficients in the balanced equation, and the other ratio will come from the word problem. So let's get started. A chemical equation is basically the recipe for a reaction. The coefficients in the equation tell us the amounts of reactants and products we need to make the recipe work. Reactants in an equation react in specific ratios to produce specific amounts of products. So look at the example here of a recipe for sugar cookies. We need 3 eggs, 1 cup of flour, plus 2 cups of sugar. And when we mix that all together and bake our cookies, we get 24 cookies. So we can simplify this to 3E for eggs plus 1F for flour plus 2S for sugar will yield 24C, or cookies. Now remember, law of conservation of mass tells us that what we start with, we have to finish with. So if we were to get the mass of the eggs and the mass of the flour and the mass of the sugar, that should then equal the mass of the 24 cookies. For example, let's say that the eggs were 200 grams, the cup of flour was 160 grams, and the sugar was 240 grams. That equals 600. 200 plus 160 is 360, plus 240 is 600, and the cookies weighed 600 grams, because the law of conservation of mass tells us that what we start with, we must finish with. It can be arranged in different forms. So if I had to bake 48 cookies, how many eggs would I need? Well, you know that 3 eggs yields 24 cookies. So if you had to bake 48, how many eggs would I need? So I can set up a proportion. Okay, I have this ratio here, 3 eggs yields 24 cookies. 3 eggs yields 24 cookies. Therefore, X eggs yields 48 cookies. So if I were to cross multiply and divide, I would get 24x equals 3 times 8 is 24, 12, 144. So divide both sides by 24, and I get x equal to 6. Or I could say, if 3 eggs yields 24, and now I want to make 48 cookies, I would need twice as many eggs. A method for solving mole-mole problems is set up a proportion using your known and your unknown values, then cross multiply and divide. This is exactly what I just did. Here they did 48 cookies over 24 equals x over 3. This is what I'm given in the problem over what I know from the balanced equation. So here I have 24x equals 144. Therefore, x equals 6. If you have 10 eggs and an infinite amount of sugar and flour, what's the greatest number of cookies you can make? So here's my 10 eggs from my problem. I don't know how many cookies that is, but I have 3 eggs and my equation yields 24 cookies. So here I have 3x equals 240. Therefore, x is going to equal 80 cookies. We can use the process we used with the cookie recipe and apply it to chemical equations. The only difference is we will always check to make sure we are starting with a balanced chemical equation. So here's an example. Let's make sure that this is balanced. I have 2 N's, 2 N's. 3 times 2 is 6 H's, 2 times 3 is 6 H's, so it's balanced. How many moles of nitrogen gas? Well, I don't know. That's what I'm looking for. Will be needed to produce 10 moles of ammonia. So I'm going to put that over what I have in the balanced equation. Now I can set up a proportion. X over 1, because there's an unspoken 1 there, equals 10 over 2. So what I get is 2x equals 10. Therefore, x equals 5. So how many moles of nitrogen gas would be needed to produce 10 moles of ammonia? Well, we need 5 moles of N2. Using the following equation, answer the questions 1 through 3. Let's make sure it's balanced. 3 C's, 3 C's, 8 H's, 4 times 2 is 8 H's, 10 oxygen, 3 times 2 is 6 oxygen, plus another 4 here is 10. If 12 moles of C3H8 react completely, how many moles of water are produced? So I've got 12 over 1 equals x over 4. Therefore, x equals 48 moles of H2O. Now let's start with the next one. The next one says if 20 moles is CO2, so now I'm starting with 20 CO2, how many moles of O2 react? Well, now I want to find that. So my proportion is going to be x over 5 equals 20 over 3. Cross multiply and divide, 3x equals 100. Therefore, x equals 33.3 moles of O2. Let's do the last one. 8 moles of oxygen. Starting with 8 moles of oxygen react completely. How many moles of water are formed? And I want to figure out water. So now I have 8 over 5 equals x over 4. So I have 5x, cross multiply and divide, equals 320. No, not 320, 32. Therefore, x equals 6.4 moles of H2O. I am using the coefficients from the balanced equation and what I'm given in the problem to set up a proportion. Okay, we're going to finish with these right here, and that's it. We already know we have a balanced equation. If 2.5 moles of N2 react, how many moles of NH3 are formed? So I've got 2.5 over 1 equals x over 2. Cross multiply and divide, x equals 5 moles of NH3. If 9 moles of NH3 are formed, how many moles of H2 reacted? My proportion is now x over 3 equals 9 over 2. Cross multiply, 2x equals 9 times 3 is 27. Therefore, 2 divided by 27 is going to be 13.5 moles of H2. If 3.5 moles of ammonia, so 3.5 of ammonia, are formed, how many moles of N2 reacted? So I've got x over an unspoken 1 equals 3.5 over 2. Cross multiply, 2x equals 3.5. Therefore, x, half of 3.5, is 1.75 moles of N2. Now, this last one is a little bit tricky, and I'm going to explain to you why. When you look at it, it says how many grams of N2 are reacted when 3.5 moles of NH3 are formed. So first we have to solve for moles, and we actually just did this problem. 3.5 moles of NH3 so let's find moles first, and x over N2. So this is x over 1, this is what we just did, equals 3.5 over 2. So we know that this is 1.75 moles. So we have 1.75 moles of N2, and they want us to change that to grams. Well, we know that 1 mole of N2, that's 2 N's, so it's 14.0067 times 2, which is going to be 28.0134 times 1.75, and that's going to be 49.02 grams of N2. Okay, and that's it for this lesson. I think we have about, I think either one lesson or 2 lessons left.